Hey, happy weekend, everybody. It's Friday. Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. If you've been watching WCNC today, the U.S. Open is on right now. We've been streaming here on WCNC Plus news since 4 o'clock. We're back to weather here, and we had a rough night last night, especially in parts of South Charlotte. We're going to dive into that a little bit later in the show as we talk about some of the flooding, some of the epic rainfall totals that we saw. Creek levels were all-time records, and then we're going to talk about 500,000-year rainfall events versus flood events, some pretty geeky stuff. But I want to focus on the weather right now because everyone's concerned, are we going to see more of these pop-up storms? And we certainly are today as we take a live look at our Dallas camera. Jeb's going to punch that up for us, and pretty cool shot. I mean, this we were watching this, Lily, our intern here, we were kind of watching this storm, and you can actually see the rain still falling. It looks like off the lens there. So if you're not familiar, our Dallas camera is over in Gaston County. It's along 321 in northern Gaston County. And the camera is up there at 1,450 feet. Our tower is actually about 2,000 feet tall, but the camera is a little bit further down. So it kind of gives you the perspective that you're in a helicopter or a drone. So we're pretty far up there, and you can see the bottom of the clouds there. So let me show you where that storm is on the radar. We'll kind of focus on the local radar. Much quieter last night. Remember, we were tracking that big wave of showers and storms moving in. So the storm that we just saw pass our camera, I'm going to zoom in on it. There's Dallas, North Carolina, right there. So the shower is kind of moving from Dallas to Spencer Mountain over to the Stanley area. And this is the town of Stanley, not the county of Stanley, which is spelled slightly different because we're going to talk about Stanley County in a minute. But you can see the showers moving off to the north and east there. And again, these are heading towards Lowesville, the southern part of Lake Norman. These are traveling northeast pretty quickly. We move into Mecklenburg County, and you can see a little showers popped up in Cabarrus County near Concord. The one thing you notice, these are actually moving. Unlike last night, we had a cluster of storms kind of develop over uptown, and they just kind of sat over areas between, I'd say, Lake Wiley to like the Plaza area. They just sat there the entire time. Now, we do have some current flood warnings, which is kind of weird because when you look at this, you're probably going to say there's not much rain there. This is because of previous rain, and I'll highlight a couple of flood warnings here. Does include parts of Anson, Montgomery, Richmond, and Stanley County. So this is the county version, not the town of Stanley, which is over in Gaston County. Flash flood warning as well for Hoke, Montgomery, Moore, and Richmond counties. And this area, Southern Pines, I got some video in a second ago from a golfing buddy of mine. I actually had to pull it up here in a second because it's pretty wild. I'll probably take this full screen in a second, see if I can bring it up full screen. Oh, come on, get bigger. I was going to try to punch this up full screen. Let's see if I can get it bigger. But this was a pretty significant rainfall.
Back there. Oh, okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
But you're going to watch it and kind of go there. You can see all of that water. That's the cart path that he's driving. Here's another video from the so you can see there. So if you've never been over that area, it's called the sand hills because it's very scenic. Go back to the radar, we could see those two warnings, which have been extended. They were briefly up till 5:30, 6 o'clock, but they've been extended to 7:45 and 8 o'clock because of all that runoff over there. Now, I'm going to widen this back out because unlike last night, we were tracking a whole bunch of clusters of storms that were heading in from the southeast, and they kind of collided over us. But if we see these showers, they're kind of moving out. And then over Charlotte, the area of greatest concern, if we see any rain at all, and I'm talking about even light showers, this is the area we're going to be watching for. This area got absolutely clobbered last night. And I'll show you the totals coming up here in a minute. But some of the totals in that area, again, were 3 to 5 inches of rain. Also, I want to point out Stanley County had a bunch of heavy rain last night as well. So any rain that moves back into Stanley County could cause some additional flooding. So let's widen the view because we're kind of seeing to the southwest today the movement of the storms southwest to northeast. That movement is giving us a different direction, but it's actually moving the storms as well. Last night we had completely stationary stuff, and so it was not moving at all, and that's kind of allowed for some flash flooding risk. So let me look at the short range future cast, because this will kind of give you an idea. There's some hints, and I'm seeing this in a couple different pieces of data, that even though it's super quiet right now, we'll have to watch this around 9-10 o'clock. You see that little cluster of storms, and look where it forms. Not in the spot we want it to form. So again, all modeling is wrong, but some modeling is useful. That's a motto I will live by. There will probably be some storms somewhere. Will they be in this exact spot? Probably not, and let's hope not, because if it's anywhere near that vicinity, it would not take anything to cause flash flooding in those same spots. It could quickly cause the creeks and streams to rise pretty quickly, because, as I'll show you in a minute, a lot of the creeks are still running high. Not as high as yesterday, but higher than kind of where they were before the rainfall yesterday. And then that little cluster kind of moves off to the south and east and becomes a pretty good line through Union County, Anson Stanley County, then moves off into Richmond County, which, again, if that moves back towards Southern Pines, where they're getting clobbered right now, then you would be dealing with another round of maybe some flash flooding over in the Sandhills. So that's kind of what I'm watching for this evening. And to break it down hour by hour, we can kind of show you. This is for Charlotte specifically, so it's not for the whole area. So I want to be completely transparent there. This is primarily for the Charlotte metro. There's an indication between 9 and 11 we could see an uptick in rainfall. So we'll be watching that carefully this evening. I think it'll be kind of, I don't think the probability is as high as that. There is some uncertainty involved in that. So I don't want you to think that it's a sure thing, but that's the time frame if we're going to see flooding. So if you have late dinner plans or you're heading out this evening, that would be something we got to keep an eye on. Now, the pattern, which is interesting. Yesterday I showed this graphic. We had a southeast wind. That blew the sea breeze all the way from the coast. Tonight, the flow is more south-southwest around that subtropical ridge. So what's happening is we're starting to see kind of more of a movement, and the flow is coming from southwest to northeast. So that's allowing for these showers and storms to move out. But here's something that has changed a lot from yesterday to today. It was pretty muggy yesterday. These dew points, that's gross. I mean, that is just low to mid 70s for dew points. That's about as high as our dew points get around here. But this really illustrates how saturated the atmosphere is, meaning it's taking very little to produce very heavy rainfall. When you have dew points in the 70s, that's at the surface, but even aloft, I mean, all the way up to the top of the troposphere, we've got a pretty saturated column. We call that precipitable water. It's a term we use in meteorology. It means basically how much water is in a column of the atmosphere. If you squeezed it all out, how much would you get? And today it's like around 2 inches. And so that's pretty high. On a normal summer day, it might be an inch, inch and a half. On a dry day, it's less than an inch. To have 2-inch precipitable water values, that's pretty high. And this is an illustration of what that looks like. We call this atmospheric moisture, but what this actually is precipitable water. You see the areas kind of in that salmon orangish color. That's tropical. That's the 2-inch plus precipitable water amounts, and you can see how much of it's over the Carolinas. Now notice it's mainly east of the Piedmont, but it kind of surges back tomorrow. So just a heads up, big weekend, Father's Day weekend. There'll be a lot of U.S. Open on WCNC, so a lot of folks will be watching golf. Just have an idea that if there are any storms in your area, the ones that get going are potentially going to produce some flash flooding, and that moisture kind of sticks around from Sunday into Monday, and then eventually tries to break down. So we're kind of stuck in a rut, to be honest with you. The pattern is kind of there that we're going to see pop-up storms. So tonight's forecast, I'll give you the city-by-city forecast here. We're going to see these isolated storms tonight. Very warm. The dew point's in the 70s, so don't expect temperatures to move much tonight. And then tomorrow for the weekend, mid to upper 80s. Now, the temperature is really kind of uncertain as well, because if the sun comes out in this kind of setup, we could easily jump to 90. There's absolutely no question about that. Even an hour or two of sunshine, you jump to 90. But with that sunshine, that would actually lead to some pretty big thunderstorms as well. So the sun is kind of a catch-22. Yeah, people want to see it on the weekend, but I think tomorrow would be a day you probably don't want to see the sun, because it would be really just crazy hot and humid. and also would mean we'd see some big time storms. So that's a look at the hour by hour forecast. So if you got plans with dad on Sunday, it's Father's Day weekend. I know a lot of folks will be planning stuff with dad, maybe heading to the lake, maybe playing golf, maybe going to the pool. Just know the later you get in the day, the higher the chance of rain. I know it says 20%, but it's pretty much because there could be a storm at any point, and the uncertainty and the timing is crucial. And then we'll take a quick glance at the 7-day forecast, and the 7-day kind of tells you, hey, we're not going to see much of a pattern change, honestly. The rain chances stay pretty solid, and if we go 10 days into the future, you could see next week it gets even hotter. So we're locked in. I know it's summer. It's supposed to be hot, but as you can see, the averages are 66 and 87. So starting really Sunday into next week, we're going to see a lot of temperatures above those numbers, which are normal for this time of year. And it's really the overnight lows. I think you're going to feel this because seeing low to mid 70s possibly in some areas only for low temperatures, that will tell you how muggy it's going to be, but also the fact that if you're starting the day in the low to mid 70s, it's not going to take much to get to 90 degrees, especially since, the 21st is the longest daylight of the entire year. So you're getting 14 and a half hours of daylight. So you're looking at maximum sun here the next, at least incoming solar radiation at least. It may not be all sun because we've got some clouds, but this is the time of year you're going to get the maximum heating. So that's a quick look at the forecast.